Well, good afternoon. My name is Anthony Bloom, the Executive Director of the Mobiles for Education Alliance. And I'm thrilled to invite my panelists for CEO Confidential. This is a great opportunity for you to hear about 3 innovators that are doing amazing work as social entrepreneurs. I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask them questions a little bit later in the agenda, but I'm going to fire some questions at them as well. I love this setting, but also the opportunity to be with 3 terrific colleagues who I've got to know over a period of time. So why don't I introduce you guys first to the audience. I'm going to start with Mike. Mike, you're based out of Ireland, and you've been building up without too much fanfare one of the largest free learning platforms for the workplace worldwide. Simply amazing. Mike, 22 million learners are accessing 3,500 free courses that you're making available. And Allison, and I understand it's one of the largest global workforce skills training platforms that is free. Mike, I'm going to ask you in a moment how it could be free. We'll get to that. But it's really exciting that it's available in a variety of languages. And Mike, look forward to hearing about Allison in just a moment. So welcome. Thank you, Mike. I'm also delighted to have Sue-Yin Lee, who's the CEO and co-founder of Anuma, which is an EdTech company helping all children learn literacy and numeracy on their own. Sue and I had first heard about the terrific work that you were doing as one of the co-winners of the Global Learning X Prize, so congratulations. And we've had the good fortune to interact with each other on a number of occasions. And in addition to sort of the Global Learning X Prize, there's other commercial products that Anuma has, including Toto Math Series, which has been downloaded 10 million times. So now you're working on a basic learning program for all Indonesian learners, and looking for partnerships to expand Anuma School, which you'll be explaining in a moment, including making it available in Arabic language. So Sue-Yin, thank you so much for joining us as well. And then finally, Lak Shinta, who's the CEO and co-founder of Atolo, a Canadian-based EdTech startup working in early childhood development and K-12 education. And congratulations for being one of the top 100 global innovations in education for your innovation talking stickers. Lak, we were just talking about before. Very excited to hear about talking stickers. And your background is somewhat unusual as a mechanical engineer, neuroscientist, and now a social entrepreneur. So you're in good company, Lak, as well. So I'm just going to start with, because it's called CEO Confidential, just asking you a few questions. Maybe, Mike, we'll start with, what was the spark that sort of inspired you or led you to the path of Allison? And I'm going to ask the same thing. Is there a vignette that you could share with us?
Okay. Thanks for having me here, Tony. The spark that got me into this was going back to just one man. I've talked about him frequently, a man called Chuck Feeney, very noted Irish-American philanthropist. And I had the good fortune of working closely with him many, many years ago. And I came to realization that even though he had businesses all around the world and checks were coming in for 50 and 100 million fairly regularly, the thing is, it was always difficult to invest them into education. Whether it be, education cannot be funded by philanthropy and charity alone. And I realized that actually, if you were going to address education, you needed to create a business model that addressed it. And that way would do it with scale. And it wasn't that I had that idea then and there, but it was planted in the back of my head. The other thing as well is just the whole idea of spending your best years of your life working on something social rather than just make a lot of money and then go and do it at a later time. So, and the third thing is, if you were to spend your time trying to impact the world, if you could make education more accessible around the world, I've said many times that education underpins all social progress. So if one person is going to try and do what they can to change things, if you can innovate in education, you can probably have the most impact. So I guess seeing those, having that experience, just opened up to me the idea: can I create a scalable, sustainable business that can make education free? And then I looked for the way. And in 2005, I realized that you could actually create a platform and drive it economically through advertising alone if you could get the costs down. And that's another story as to how we got on from there.
Well, we're going to come back to that a little bit later. Thank you, Mike. And in the spirit of talking about spending good years of your life working in global education, Sue-Yin, what was the spark that sort of ignited your interest that led to Anuma?
I came from a more personal inspiration. So I was a game designer. I and my co-founder, my husband, were both game developers working with AAA game titles before. And when my child was born with special needs, we just can see the quality gap of the products between entertaining healthy adults to those who is given for children with special needs. So we founded Enuma with a mission to help all learners, including those with special needs, to be independent learners. That is one. And then I originally focused on children with special needs because I think that they have great disadvantage of learning. But through time, we realized that there are more number of children, actually far larger number of children who are struggling in learning. Those are from poor families, those who are immigrants, and then joining to Global Learning X Prize competition from 2014 widened my eyes for all those learners who couldn't access quality education. So we just walk all those journey from sharp focus on children who are struggling in learning because of their disability to all those children who are struggling in learning for all those other issues.
And Sunim will come back in a moment, and Mike as well, to hear a little bit more about the company, but terrific just understanding where that seed was planted. Lak, what about you? Antenatal or talking stickers?
Yes.
Either one, just in terms of where did that spark come from?
Yes, thanks everyone. Thanks Tony, as well as the panelists for the invitation for this panel. So around 2014 or 15, when I was a researcher and neuroscientist then, I've been reading a lot of reports, and most of these reports were talking about children not being ready for school. And when I was doing computational modeling of early brain development, it really felt to me that I had to do something there. And then when we traveled to Kenya and India, we quickly found out that children to whomever we met were not able to communicate or even understand what we're talking about. So we quickly understood that they had a limited vocabulary set during their early childhood. And this vocabulary set, the limited vocabulary set, is something which is from their parents. Mm-hmm. And so we also knew from research that 85% of the vocabulary during early childhood development comes from the parents. So we defined the problem of how do we solve this problem of building vocabulary for these children, especially for the parents who had limited set in their language and also in their context. So that's how we started off with talking stickers.
All right, so I'm going to start with you, Lax. So I often describe technology as a range of possible utilization from puppetry to satellite. Just but talking stickers, tell us, what is talking stickers? What do you want people to know about talking stickers? Describe a little bit of the technology.
Yes. So during my childhood, I loved to play with stickers. Every child loves to play with stickers. It's refreshing. It's got this rewarding experience. Children, you see a smile in every child who is interacting or trading stickers. And we wanted to work with technology to solve this problem. And we wanted to work with a simple technology where every child or even a parent who is less literate could be able to interact. So we zoned in on a QR code technology, which everyone is familiar with. And we quickly knew that for vocabulary and language development, especially for early brain development, it's the language cortex as well as the auditory cortex, which requires only audio. You don't need visuals. So all you require is an audio-based learning. So based upon these, we knew that we had to come up with something which can marry the physical stickers with a technology as a QR code. We can use the QR code to scan the stickers, and you bring the audio to life in any language and dialect without the requirement of internet.
So Lak, give us a specific example of content that has been featured on talking stickers.
So yeah, the content, what we have developed is nursery rhymes in the local languages. For example, in indigenous languages, the folks, how do you capture those from the community and provide it more standard to other parents who would want to utilize that?
That's terrific. Zach, did you bring stickers for everyone? We'll talk about that
Yes,
later.
I brought stickers for
Okay,
everyone.
Excellent. So, Suin, maybe tell us people a little bit about sort of a NUMA or particular software that you'd like to let people know about in terms of the breadth and depth of the software that you're supporting.
So we are developing a comprehensive early math and early literacy software that that actually help children to learn all by themselves without adults' help. So to do so, we are actually building very early stage of early childhood to teach first and second grade skills. So in here, in the world, not all 7 years old are automatically ready to learn first grade skills. So many children in the world actually miss all the skills from as early as 2 years or 3 years. So we teach them the basic idea of early digital literacy and the rule of puzzle and all those basic things like visual discrimination and auditory skills to teach them basic ABCs and 1, 2, 3s and just keep building those programs with really strong game-based learning to second grade. So our program is very comprehensive. For example, our KitKat school, which won the Global Learning X Prize competition, has more than 300 videos and about 700 activities per math and literacy. So we are building those software and we actually sell it to just families in East Asia who can pay about $100 to $300 per year for quality early childhood program. But at the same time, we provide it to refugee camps in Bangladesh or children in Indonesia or children in Tanzania using the same technology and same method.
And I know that in terms of being one of the recipients of the Global Learning X Prize, there had to be some evaluation to show impact of the software. Do you want to talk about that at all in terms of learning outcomes?
Yes. The final stage of Global Learning X Prize, they gave just tablets to each children in 170 Tanzanian villages and just test them before giving the tablet and come back after 15 months and measure how these children learn anything. So only 7% of children in those villages can read one word, but after 15 months, more than 40% of children can read sentences, and 70% of children can do basic addition and subtraction. It is almost similar to 1 year of schooling in Tanzania.
Yeah, that's fabulous. And we'll come back to sort of plans for the future to be able to extend that knowledge to other learners. So Mike, what is a key ingredient of the Allison formula that you want to share with people?
I guess the key thing is just technology, and we all know that that's the big game changer, but the degree to which technology is enabling new ideas and bold ideas is, I think, maybe not as appreciated as it might be. The first thing when you're looking at technology impacting education is the whole distribution, in the sense that if you look at, nearly everyone can access the internet today, and I know there's some countries that we're still short on. But giving an example, even in India, you have the likes of Jio is charging people $4 a month for 2 gigabyte daily download. So put that in context is that the poorest country in the world, as far as I've looked up, is Burundi. The annual income is $650. So can somebody on $650 a year afford $4 a month? Yes, they can. Many of you, including myself, have been to very poor countries, and you know that people will give up their smartphone after, they'll go hungry rather than let go of their phone. So, and even in the next 5 years, there's another $1 trillion being invested in technology. So all of the innovation that can happen in education is sitting on a huge amount of investment that it doesn't really have to pay for. But then there's, within education, the cost of actually putting content into course format or into a format that people can learn is getting cheaper and cheaper all the time. On Allison, you can go on and create courses for free. You can do it on Udemy. You can do it on other large platforms. So that skill, technology is allowing people to put in skills and knowledge very cheaply. The cost of LMSs, Alison is actually paying people now to come and send their learners to Alison. If you just are a school or you're a business and you want to use any of the 3,500 courses on the platform, you just put up a profile and you send your people to it, and we will give you a revenue share of what revenue they generate on the platform. And that just turns up on its head the industry, because even at this conference, people have been saying, oh, the cost of this, the cost of that, and I'm screaming there to myself, no, because, and it really is all about using the technology as a social entrepreneur to drive down the cost of learning all the time. So that's creating enormous opportunity. And, if I asked around this room who's a teacher, a few people might put up their hand, but the truth is we all are teachers now. And we're in an environment where all of us can take a video, all of us can share learning. So there's an economist in the room might say that the market for knowledge and skills is becoming efficient. And that means that actually there is very little chance of being able to charge for knowledge in the long term or skills training, because it's going to be online. And it's just like if there's a wise man in the room and he teaches 100 people, you need just one of those 100 people who was taught well to go out and to replicate it and to tell other people. So the world of education is rapidly coming to the situation where all content will be free online, and very sophisticated LMSs will be accessible for free, and that's happening now. So it's amazing what opportunity that will bring to the world, because it doesn't matter whether you're in Zimbabwe or California, you're going to be accessing the very same content. And the last thing is just in terms of languages. If you develop the technology in the right way and you input the content in the right way, or in a pre-thought way, you can actually change this content into languages very quickly. And you and I were talking earlier about our response to COVID. Within a few days of 2020 in January, we had a COVID course developed in English language, and with the help of 800 Alison volunteers, mostly medical professionals, we had that translated into 70 languages within 6 weeks. And it didn't cost us very much. So again, I would just ask people to raise their expectations of what should be free and what should be high quality online.
Mike, you had talked about sort of in the future, in terms of how far in the future do you think something's going to happen in terms of that transformation, that people are going to be looking at high quality free education with like a revenue model? Do you think there's going to be competition or forces against that? What do you sort of see in terms of the horizon?
Yeah, I see. I guess some people look at Alison and they see what we do, put the amount of content that we do, and we don't charge for it, and that horrifies so many people. But that's going to continue. We produced 1,500 new courses this month. We'll do maybe 5,000 next year. So the genie's out of the bottle on that one. And then you ask when? Well, the answer is now. That's going to happen very, very rapidly. I think what you're going to see is a small number of very large learning platforms. And it's not just learning platforms, because Alison, we started off with learning, but we have free psychometric testing now, free publishing, free job matching, free mental health and well-being assessments. The joker in the room is digital content. Once you create a test, whether it's an aptitude test or a well-being test or whether it's a course, the marginal cost of me sharing it to you is next to zero, right? That's the joker in the room, right? And that puts everything, the industry head over heels.
Lack, we're going to go from online global platforms, reaching. Tell me about your vision for talking stickers. Is it going to be like Mike, that you have talking stickers all over the world in different languages? What's your vision for talking stickers?
So we started off as an early childhood education platform back in 2015. And since then, we have iterated and learned from the markets. And today, we have pioneered and tested the technology in 8 countries. And since then, what we have learned is the platform is expandable in its applications. So we have expanded to K-12 education, involving the parents. For the first time, these parents are being included. So because they have a tool in their own language, which they can follow and also direct their children in education, and also connecting the schools and the homes, because now what is done at the learning moments captured in the schools are now being heard at home by the parents. So I think it's also very powerful for the child, especially the young child, to hear their favorite teacher at home. So it changes the whole dynamics of how learning happens and how the parents are taking on in terms of directing their children's education. And what really we have pushed on is also the platform of how this can also be inclusive as well as equitable. So we had expanded it to deaf and mute children by bringing in sign language and for the first time, even the parents are also going to be learning sign language to have that parent-child interaction. I think that's very critical because that has been totally absent for this particular population. And we have also opened up the platform for antenatal care counseling for indigenous population because so all of these fall under early childhood development. And we opened up the platform for COVID messages as well. Worked with governments in India, reaching out to 300 million children, as well as their communities there. So I think the vision for Talking Stickers is to grow with the governments in these regions because there is a lot to be done in the hard-to-reach communities. And we also have a new problem, which is learning loss, which is happening due to the pandemic. So we have a new innovation which is coming in, which will be the first screenless standalone device, which will be offline, but helping children to catch up with their curriculum-based learning. So I have a child who was in senior kindergarten and who is now, after 16 months during the pandemic, is in grade 2. But what he's been evaluated is his reading skills have dropped. So this is a child so it's for every child pandemic has affected. So based upon what I have seen with my child, we have developed this product and we want to see this as an accelerated learning, self-directed learning, which can happen in any language for the child.
What's interesting from Mike's comment to yours about a platform upon which you could layer variety of content and languages. So Sunan, in effect, Numa School is a platform that you want to make available in a variety of languages in terms of your local language programming. Could you talk a little bit about your vision of a Numa School?
I will just explain what we do in Indonesia right now. So in the beginning of pandemic, we got grant funding from 2 Indonesian foundations and start to develop Indonesian literacy version. So unlike the contents that is designed for people who already know how to learn, for early childhood, it is more hands-on contents that build all the scaffolding from really early childhood to certain grade level. So it costs a lot, but still it is very affordable. So after building Indonesian local language program, we just release it for free for all Indonesian learners to access through their mobile device. And we recently got the endorsement from Ministry of Education. They just featured this and recommended it for parents to access in their mobile device at home. We are venture-backed for-profit, even though we are part of social enterprise. We just try to find a good business model with that. And what we see in early childhood, local literacy is really rare, and it is really foundational. But sometimes wealthy families are willing to purchase math or English as a foreign language or digital literacy or whatever, but not local language, because parents already know how to teach and how to read a book with their children, while vast majority of the population really need local language but can't afford to purchase any of extra program outside of school. So our approach is just releasing this local literacy for free, and we'll try to monetize math and English as a foreign language and other luxurious subject on top of that. And we believe that that will be also really great if we can build a successful business model on top of that. That will be formula of success to reach to quality education for all, for most of major languages in the world on time.
Soon, you had spoken about in the introduction I had mentioned in terms of Arab language versioning. What's your vision and timeline in mind for having an Arab language version of this?
Yes, Indonesian language is Roman alphabet based, so we could do it inside of certain budget. Arabic language will be challenging, but I know this is a language that is very high needs. And at the same time, because we are working in Indonesia and Malaysia, there are a large number of population who are also willing to purchase those languages as part of their children's early education. So we are looking for the funder who are participate this stream. So funding for Arabic language basic literacy version that is covering from early childhood to second grade, and sharing it with all the children in Arabic world to access for free.
Well, terrific. Hopefully there's someone in the audience who are watching to be able to follow up, to take advantage of that amazing opportunity to help build the platform for this region. Mike, when we've talked, and you've spoken about the demise of your classic universities and colleges, and you sort of talked about that a little bit earlier. What do you have against universities and colleges, Mike? Why should they be different?
Well, I don't have anything against colleges and universities. It's just that they're supremely inefficient at delivering a good quality service. The truth is today that they're too slow, they're too expensive, and what they offer is too limited. I just see even my own kids. I have 4 kids and 3 of them in college, and they don't want to be in college because the learning put in front of them is too slow. So I think what you're going to see with all learning available free online. Now, there's only certain learning, of course, that can be done online. I would never. There's always value in meeting a professor one-to-one. There's the value of the laboratory and college, but there's no question in my when you look at university education, only 8% of the world have ever gone to college. Right, that's 600 million people. Nearly 99% of those have done a course which at least another 100,000 people have done. That just suggests to you that everyone's learning the same thing. Therefore, the amount of learning that's actually provided, whether it's Brazil, Singapore, Ireland, whatever, it's all the same thing. What does that scream to you as an economist or someone looking at it is that it can be commoditized. There's only 20 million people in the world with PhDs, which is really where there's original learning. So all of what the college and universities are providing online can be commoditized and made freely accessible within the next few years. Okay, so then they're just faced, and well, what are they going to do? Well, just the famous Peter Drucker question of what business are you in? Well, I think that the learning needs to go towards research. If they're that smart, they need to be commercially paid for what they're doing. A lot of I've had fun with some of the Irish universities where I've been in an audience, and I asked the university presidents, what business are you in? And they say, oh, we're in learning and education. And then I point out to them that their balance sheet says that they made more from accommodation last year than they did from learning. So an awful lot of universities are getting into accommodation, tourism. And it's not just Ireland, England. In the Western world, we have a lot of Chinese and Indian students coming. Why are they coming? Are they really coming to learn? I'm not so sure. They're coming to learn English. They're coming to socialize, to meet people from the Western world, whatever. That means that the colleges are actually in a social business. They're in tourism, they're into entertainment. So yes, the role of the colleges and universities as we know it is definitely on the demise. That does not mean they're going to go out of business because they have facilities and they can do a business with that. I think the joker in the room in this instance is social learning. I think that traditionally you and I went to college and we all recognized that there was value in learning. And there was an element of social development. Okay. It's just like, can the colleges actually think about social development in a lot more sophisticated way? Because actually that's where they have some long-term capability. And in the learning, I think they're going to be put out of business to a large degree by large learning platforms like Allison.
That's interesting, Mike. It makes me think of the vision of a flipped classroom talking about, but it's almost like sort of describing a flipped new relationship for the university because of social learning, where people are getting a bulk of maybe core content from online platforms. So there still will be a role.
Yeah, but it's difficult for them. It's difficult for any incumbent in a marketplace. Okay, they're used to charging people a lot of money. And you can look at so look at it this way. Look at what information Allison has on a learner. We know what information they give us, basic information. We know that they're professional stuff because they fill up a profile, a resume. We know what learning they've done. We know how successful they are at that learning. We know what their aptitudes are because a lot of them have done aptitudes. We even know what their mental health and well-being is. There is an enormous amount, and we know what their career choices are because we give lots of information about careers, and they've probably told us something. What does a college really know about a kid? They know where their parents live and where to send a very large bill. Okay? So who, at the end of the day, why do people go to college? And it's validation for the workplace. 90% of surveys will tell you that. So actually, who's going to be able to provide learning to people longer term? Well, it's obviously somebody who knows an awful lot about them, and not the people who really just want to build them about an old service that's overpriced.
Fascinating. Sunan, you're working at the earlier sort of stage of development. Do you have any ambitions for Enuma to go beyond just the early grades of foundational literacy and numeracy? Or is that pretty much where you see your vision right now because of the enormity of the challenge and the importance of foundational literacy and numeracy?
We are sharply focused on early childhood to second grade because these children need to learn how to learn. And this is where the great failure begins. And if we can't teach those children properly, there is no higher education. And there was data that 59% of the children in the world actually failed in early grade. But yesterday, I don't know how to call him, Gordon Brown, Mr. Gordon Brown just said that it will enlarge it to 70%. So if we fail 70% in early childhood, there is no university. The problem is how to teach those children under second grade is very different from how to teach people who know how to learn. So we want to focus on this age group continuously, but we can expand the subject continuously through time, right? Many parents are looking for coding education in wealthy countries, financial literacy, and second languages. And other many small things that the children in new generation need to learn. So we will continuously dig that population, but hopefully we can scale all those valuable learnings to many children in many different language backgrounds in the world.
And it's interesting, Suan, because of course, with foundational literacy and numeracy, you could have any content that you could use to teach STEM education, for example. Coding you had mentioned as well. So there's no limit in terms of what, Lack, it's almost like what you were talking about working with the talking stickers across sectors. So not exclusively just education. Do you want to talk just for a moment? Is there some other particular examples that you want to give of other sector applications of talking stickers that you're really excited by?
Yes, I think so. Let me tell you an example of antenatal care counseling. So when governments invited us to a district in India, so when I was there doing the capacity building, working with preschool children, the same preschool staff was also trying to look at pregnant women, counseling them, and they were doing home visits. And every day there used to be few women who used to come there, collect their daily rations, and then go back. And I told them, why don't I come with you for a couple of home visits? And during the home visits, I was astonished to see there, they were telling the same set of counseling questions for a 24-week versus a 36-week pregnant lady. They were not differentiating in terms of what specific things they need to be doing. And more so, they were discriminating with indigenous populations because they did not know the language to communicate to those pregnant women. So that's when I thought the same technology which is going on with the preschool can now work with the health sector, working on providing the 40-week antenatal care counseling for the frontline staff to have a job tool, as well as at the same time it could go as in indigenous languages which can benefit the beneficiary. So this was a success for us because now we had working with the governments who were always looking at bringing down IMR rates, MMR rates down. Now we have a health sector and education sector convergence, which they have been struggling. Now to have a single platform where we can manage the whole community as well as the whole family. So I think that was a big aha moment for us.
That's terrific. I'm going to invite the audience, just in terms of just for a moment, are there any questions from folks for our CEOs? Anybody have a question that they want to ask? Please raise your hand.
Tony, could I offer one comment?
Yeah, please go ahead,
that
Mike.
just ties
Yeah.
what we're saying. I think it's blatantly clear that governments are spending too much more money on university and third levels and too little on early stage development. We have to recognize that across the world, the average family size is 2 children. As for those of us who are going to live 50 and 40 or 40 and 50 years, what's going to happen is you're going to see we're going to be far more dependent on far fewer people. We've got to get it right with young people. We've got to invest our most precious resources in them. And that's the benefit of technology, is that we can actually reduce the higher level stuff because commerce is coming in to fill that. But on the younger side, not putting enough money. There's too many issues. I'm sure Sunil can go on about them. Not enough money going into early stage education.
Well, of course, you guys are familiar with that we organize an annual conference, the Symposium for the Education Alliance. Our most recent one was focused on foundational literacy and numeracy and had a variety of presentations from organizations around the world. It is interesting, Mike, because those teachers that could be trained, or general populations that could be trained about effective literacy and numeracy instruction, could also get their instruction from Allison. So in terms of the linkages between higher education for teacher training or paraprofessionals to be able to support foundational literacy and numeracy could just simply explode the number of resources that could be shared to help address this issue. Well, if anybody has a question, I'm inviting you to raise your hand. I will ask another one while other people are thinking of the questions. Black, what's a aha moment, a vignette that you said, wow, this really works? Can you think of something that basically really sort of, I'm totally excited by this and I can't believe I did this? Is there a sort of a moment that comes to mind?
Yes. I think it's yet to be tested, but from our MVP, which is the minimal viable product, what we developed 3 weeks back, we now have a standalone device. So we know the pandemic, there's a large number of children, majority of the children are having a lot of screen time. And there's also withdrawal symptoms. When out of the screen time, they're getting very aggressive at their homes. And we also know that these children, the online learning is not working, especially the younger ones. So the aha moment for us is, why don't we have something like Alexi, which is a voice-assisted offline, so that there's safety and privacy for children, which a child can access anytime, and also have mental health support for the child in terms of coaching them on where exactly they need to be, what exactly they want to be doing for their curriculum-based learning goals. I think that is something we think is a requirement which could also accelerate the recovery from the pandemic.
Well, what's really exciting, Lac, is typically a lot of development and donor funding is siloed, right? And then it's even siloed at the country level in terms of particular sectors, and then siloed between countries. There's none of. What's intriguing about talking stickers, just like Allison, for example, is that it's a platform, again, that could play across a variety of sectors. So you could test its use for behavior change in some sectors and see what the application could possibly be for others. It's all about behavior change.
Yes.
So it is intriguing to think about being able to experiment across sectors.
Yes.
So you've had a lot of success, and you're growing in terms of expanding the great product that you have to a larger market. Is there any particular vignette that you could think of in terms of that growth path that was like, your aha moment? I imagine there's been a number of them. And it can't be necessarily winning the Global Learning X Prize, because it seems like a pretty big aha. But is there anything else you could think of particularly? Maybe sort of a country experience that comes to mind?
I will just tell about my big aha moment I found 11 years ago. At the time, it is the really early days of iPad. And we experimented with children who are from 18 months to 5 years old with special needs. And we have one particular game that is really, really boring. So we were game developers, and we couldn't stand on the quality. So we just continuously tuned the rhythm. And one day, when it feels right for the adult game developers who really what it is sensitive for the interaction, it started to work for 18-month-old with Down syndrome. So with that aha moment, since then, we really focusing on the quality level we have to give to young children. If we want to make digital interaction, if we want to invite them to the digital interaction and build some of motivation, what is the quality we have to focus on? In this world, I came from game industry. People spend about, for example, one particular project I was involved, spent $70 million just to entertain healthy adults for 2 years of time. That is just increased through time. Right now, the size of the funding and the investment to entertain healthy adults in this short amount of time continuously grows. But when I see the size of investment to the quality, the education interaction quality, it is still very, very, very small. And we all know that in this world, sadly, sometimes the size of investment, actually, not always, but to make quality contents and to make quality interaction, it requires a certain amount of investment. So I just want to emphasize that people still discuss about all those digital-based learning, online-based learning, game-based learning, or whatever. But it's time, I think that I saw it 10 years. It's time to discuss about the quality and the efficiency and efficacy of the program, how it is engaged, how much it attracts children. So, yep, I am still chasing the quality that we can engage all children in the world, regardless of their ability to engage in full for a long amount of time. And I don't know when I will be satisfied with that.
But it's also interesting, Soon, you're talking about even sources of funding in order to be able to take quality products to the next scale. I know from development agencies that I've worked at that there's a missing middle. There's large funding at the country level for projects, and then there's small funding at the scale or the startup level for innovation, and there's not necessarily deep funding to take quality products to the scale level. So it is interesting sort of mentioning about how to attract additional funding for tested products that are platforms upon which that you can test a variety of interventions. Mike, the aha point, I'm going to target you one of these. We've been spending a few days with each other. It seems to me that every country you go to, Mike, there's an aha because somebody knows Allison. So you have to pick, could you give me one of the vignettes of one of the travels that you've been on that it's rebounded back in terms of somebody...
Yeah, well, as you know, so Allison has Allison graduates everywhere. So everywhere I go, I usually spend time to put out a note. Our marketing team will ask, who wants to meet Mike and tell us why. But in any case, I met a chap in Nigeria, and he came up to me, and a lot of graduates wanted to meet me. I hired the Sheraton Hotel in Lagos, a big ballroom, and spent 2 minutes with about 100 people. But this guy came up and he told me that he had just got a job. And he told us a story very eloquently that he had done 3 courses on Allison and it allowed him to get a job. But the thing was, he had no formal education. And that was an aha moment because it occurred to me, here's a bright young man who was smart enough to do 3 courses. Now he's, as he says, he got his dream job. But it made me think, hold on a minute now. If there's a shortage of skill around the world, and yet only 8% of people have gone to college, 92% haven't. How about we create a system whereby we can actually figure out what people know by literally sitting them down and asking them 1,001 questions? How about giving them all aptitude tests to figure out how smart they are in some ways? How about giving them tests on mental health and well-being? You could build up a whole profile of somebody, and they don't have to go to college. You don't care where they went to college. You don't care how much time they spent, or or the cost of it. And then the aha moment on that is not only could you get a skills audit on every individual, but you could go into a company and get the full skills audit on a company. And the real aha moment is that you could do that on a country basis as well. Why does the world not know what people know? We should know.
Mike, I can't think of a better place to close our conversation, just provocative. And want to thank Lac, Suen, and Mike for taking the opportunity to speak with you, just in terms of your brilliant work and your important contributions to the field of education. I know that you'll stick around for a few moments afterwards for people to ask you additional questions. Maybe a round of applause from our audience. And thanks for joining us.
Thanks, John.
No, it's completely, go ahead. For all three of them?
The impact of what?
So how do you measure success or the impact? That's a perfect question.
Well, for us, is people getting jobs and moving on in their careers and empowering them to new opportunities. And we're getting better at tracking that than ever before.
So I'm just going to ask our organizers, we're done? Okay, perfect. So we could continue. If people have questions, please just join us afterwards. Thanks. Great question.